Hi friends. Hi friends. In this video, we are going to explain about. We are going to see about the CSS selectors. We all know that in HTML page, in order to apply the CSS styles, we need to know the CSS selectors beforehand. So, what are the different kind of CSS selectors in CSS we have? Um, these are mainly goes into three ways, that is simple css selectors. So the simple css selector, next is attribute selectors, next is combinational selectors. We will first see about how in simple selectors works. So what are simple selectors? Simple selectors are like element selector. Just by using the element we can specify the styles which can be applied to particular that element, or a class selector by using class. So we'll see how class we can declare, how we can use the class selector. And the next is that id selector. So we'll see about these three simple selectors in this video. Yeah, so I just wrote a simple html page which having the three divs in that html page. That is one div first, next is the second div here, so next is the third div. So we have three divs. The first div is just a simple div. The next div is having the class with value main. So this means this div element has a class whose value is main. Okay, the next div element is having an id attribute, and its value is id12. So actually in html, after the html elements, whatever extra are there in that html element are mainly the attributes. So here if you see class is an attribute and its value is main, here id is an attribute and its value is id12. So attributes may or may not have the values, some attributes will have the values. So these are the predefined attributes. Class and id are the predefined attributes, and they have the special meaning in the html, so in css as well. So in general, if you see, id will apply to an element which is unique. So this particular element has to be represented uniquely in this page. That's the reason why we are using id as an attribute for this element. So in the same way, class in general, it is like how each uh, student, you know all the so in a class, if we have some 10,000 or 40 people, okay, for all those classes, for all those students, we say this is the class. So in the same way, in html, for a group of html elements, we can use the same class name. That means all those elements belongs to that particular class. Okay, so here for suppose I have one div element with the class main, so I can have as many as other elements with the same class main. So for suppose I have a paragraph element with the class main, it's not required to be same kind of element. It's not required to be same type of element. It can be any other type with the class main. So this means a paragraph element and a div element are under class main. Okay, or belongs to this class main. So that is the meaning. So in css, if we apply styles by using element, it applies to all the elements of that type. So for suppose here in the style section I have given div selector and its css properties. Okay, this means all the div elements in this html page will be applied with color red. That means the text color will be red, and border will be 2 px and solid black, and the height will be 200 px. That means you can see this example, how this is working in over here. So here if you see, sorry, here if you see, yeah, in this page if you see, this is the div element which I gave the general div. So I gave that the color red, right? So that's the reason why we are getting the color red for this first div, that is general div. So next is that border we have given, height we have given. That's the reason why we are getting all that styles to this div. So the next div is that what we have, paragraph main and paragraph div main. So in order to apply the styles based on the class, we can use the notation dot class name. So this means all the elements whoever having the class main, to those elements the below says property applies. So here we have two elements, one is paragraph, other is the div, both having the class name main. So the background color yellow will applies to the paragraph as well as div, because both having the class main. So you can see now here is that the paragraph is this class div, the name is I have given as div, so it is coming like that. So here if I give para, so here we have paragraph and div elements both having the same class. So you can see the same styles applied to this paragraph and the second class div as well. That means the background color. So in the same way, we can also apply the styles by using the unique identifier, such as the ID value. So for suppose the third div is having the ID 1 2. So I am using that ID as a selector. So the way how we write says a selector for the ID is hash the ID name. So the styles which are given to this ID here will be applied to that element which is having the ID 1 2. So usually the ID will be unique for the page. So that means a div, now here we have a div with the ID is equal to 1 2. No other element with the ID attribute should have this value ID 1 2. So it should have different value for the ID uh, for that particular element. So that's how the identifier we have to give. So we can see the styles applied to this identifier. That is we have given, what we have given the extra style here is that font size 50 pixels. So if you see here the font size for this identified div, so something is wrong here, it didn't applied. I think I have given something wrong here. mm, this div and this div, yeah, so here there is something wrong. So that's the reason the styles are different for this. Yeah, here it didn't close, that's the reason. So you can see now so here this is the ID div, that's the reason. And if you see the font size is not increased in any one of the existing these things in existing divs, the only identified div has the font size more, because we have given the font size for the by using the ID of that element. So this is how we have to we can write the styles. These are the simple attributes, that is simple element selectors, and the simple class selector and simple ID selectors. So element selector can be applied to element of its all type. So wherever this type div is there for all those divs, that's the reason why div, the simple div and the here class div and the identified div, for all those divs the styles which are given for this uh, general div are applied. So if we use class, we can specify a particular set of elements with that particular class, and ID means only for a particular element the styles will be applied. So we have seen that example here clearly. Yeah, we'll discuss about combination next section. Hi friends, in this video we will discuss about the attribute selectors. So what are the different ways we can select the attributes? This is the syntax that attribute selector. The square brackets within that attribute name will come to select the styles, to select the elements which having the attribute attr. So one more way is that attribute with its value, and attribute with its value as a space separated value for the attribute. So star means it can appear at anywhere in the string. This means starting with value, the attribute value should be starting with val, the attribute value should be ending with val, the attribute should be starting with val and may have the hyphen after this or may not have. So we'll see how this can be selected here. So I have taken a simple example here, and I can open the particular HTML page. So you can see now, so what styles I try to apply. So here if you see, the first example is that disabled. So I am using the disabled attribute to disable, to select the input elements which having the disabled attribute and to apply the styles to that. So here I am using the disabled attribute. That means the elements which having the disabled attribute will get applied to the styles: border 2px, solid, black. So here one input element is there, that is disabled with a disabled attribute, that is prefixed with a name. So you can see for the same input attribute, it is disabled, the input is disabled, so the other input elements are easily clickable, but this input element is disabled because the disabled attribute is there. But by using the disabled attribute, what we have given is that border to px. So border to px applied to this input element. So the no other input element having that border to px. It is the border, you can see the size is more, but the other input elements are not having the border more than the default border. So the reason why it is like that, because we selected by using the attribute. So we can also select elements by using the attribute and its value. So here, for suppose I am using the type is equal to text, the value should be within double quotes or single quotes. So here it will apply this style for the all input elements, for the all elements which having the type attribute and its value is text. So here if you see, I have three input elements. So one, two, three, three input elements with the value text. So all these three input elements will have the font size 40 px. You can see that here is that font size 40 px is there. The font size increased to this. So if you see here, if I remove this particular font size, so they usually shrink to the normal sizes. So the reason why why when I increase the font size, it became the size of the text is more, because the font size is getting making the increase the input text box, because it has to accommodate that particular font size. That's the reason indirectly it is increasing the text box size. So I'm just focusing here on the how the attribute selectors are working, and it's how we can select the elements by using the attribute of HTML element, and also attributes with its value, how we can select. And there are other ways that we are going to discuss. So the third way is that here I am using the lang attribute and its value is en. It should be starting with en, and next after en it can have a hyphen, or it can be ended with just en. So here if we suppose, see here I am using two divs which having the language attribute, and one having the en, just en value, one having the en hyphen us. So I will use one more div, so that is just en, like this I am using. So ens, so for suppose simple. So this is not a valid one, so we'll tell not valid. Okay, not valid language. So we'll see how this the styles will get applied to this. So if you see, not a valid language, this is the English US language, this is English language. So the text color is not looking good, so we'll change the text color, that is here language green we will take, because yellow is not visible. So here if you see, for the first div the style didn't apply, that is text color green, but for the second and third it got applied color green and border also. The reason how it is applied, because it is checking for the attribute language, it is having the language attribute, but the value should have the en, just en, or after en it should have hyphen. So here if you see these two elements having the that behavior. That means language attribute with just en value, it get applies, and also language attribute with en hyphen. So this element will get applied. So it should be starting with en and should have the. So the next attribute selectors are, you can see here, language lang star is equal to English. That means um, it will select the elements which having the lang attribute whose value containing en as a string. So here if you suppose here if you take lang is equal to en, yes it is there, so en string is there. That's the reason why the styles which are given to this will get applied to this element. So for suppose one more way you can tell, you can see that is, so I'm using one more div. Okay, so something like here I will change the text one to ens. Here I am using some other text, so it is just having the en as a substring, so that needs to be there. So now I will open that page, sorry, page, so yeah, so if you see now, not a valid language one two, not a valid language. So see elements both elements having the color, border having one page solid red. The reason is that both elements will get selected, because I think the green is not getting applied. I will use red here, something, yeah. So if you see now, you can see this style here, red color applied to those text. How it is applied? Because it is selecting the elements which having the language attribute with having a substring value as en. So if you see here, the first div language 1 2 is having the en as a substring here, and here also en as substring. So those two elements got selected. That's how the substring attribute value selector works. Next is the tilde. So this tilde means it can contain a cls as a word in the class attribute. So for suppose here in the below example, I having a class cls. That means cls is a word, so it will get selected. This element will get selected because it is a class attribute and its value should have this cls as a word. So it is having. So the next div is having the same way. Class is equal to main space cls space more. So here also cls is a word. So that's the reason why green color will get applied to this these two div elements. So we know how the sub word, so word selector, attribute having a particular word can be selected. Those elements can be selected by using this selector. So, so that's the reason why the styles will get applied to this div, because both having the word cls. So the color is green and font size is 30 px for those two divs. We'll see class div and class div 2. Those two divs, what how it is the style is applied. So class div and class 2 div. So the font size got increased. The reason is that because we're having the font size 30 px and color green for the divs which having the cls as a word in the class attribute as a of its value. So that's the reason why it is like this. So the next css selector is, yeah, starting and ending css selector. So we can see this, um, so this means cls class um, caret is equal to cl. That means the class attribute should be having a value which should start with the cl as a string starting. The starting value of this attribute should have cl. So here we have a div here that is starting with cl. So I will disable this style, ending style. As of now I will remove this, yeah. So if you see now, So class div is only having the style red. So if you see only one div having that color, the reason how it is applied, the class attribute should be having a value which should be starting with CL. So it is this is the only div whose class value is starting with CL. This div class value is not starting with CL, it is starting with MAIN. So this is how it applies the starting value dude. So the next one is that ending. So that means here the class attribute, it will check for the class attribute whose value is ending with ls. So here if you see, here this is ending with that ls, so the color applies to that particular div. So otherwise I can also use more here. So it applies the div for this. Why? Because it is ending with more. So if you see, that is applied to this div. The reason is that yellow color we have given. So the reason is that it is ending with this div is ending with more as a value. Hi friends, in this video we will see about uh, so we will see about hi friends, in this video we will see about the group selectors, in that child selectors and dissident selectors. These are combinational selectors. So as of now we have seen the simple CSS selectors. We can apply the CSS by using one of two of them or three of them, any combination in any order. So it depends the order, the way we have given the selector, the styles will get applied. So we'll see how the group selectors, how the combinational selectors works. So first we will see about the group selectors. What is meant by group selectors? Group selector means when you want to apply a particular CSS styles to a group of elements. For suppose for h1, h2, div and paragraph, for all these four elements, if you want to apply a particular style, so how can you write the elements separated with spaces? After that the styles will come. So that means this represent h1 comma h2 comma div comma p. This style represents h1 will get the styles and h2 will also get the style and div also will get the style, paragraph also will get the styles. This means it actually means that we actually specify the styles individually for each of these elements we have given with the comma separated. So that's the reason. So in the example in which I have given, so h1 initially I have given the styles to only h1. Here I have h1, h2, h3 and paragraph. So the styles apply to that only for the h1 tag. That's why this is coming with the margin left and the color blue. Those styles I have given for the h1. So if I want to apply the same styles to h2 as well, h1 comma h2 I have to give. So if I refresh this page, I got for h2 as well. So if I want to add for h3, so then I can give comma separate. So you can give any element in each table with comma separated, so the styles will get applied to all those elements. Here I am giving the styles to paragraph as well, so it not needs to be homogeneous elements, it can be any element. So the styles apply to this as well. So for paragraph as well the styles got applied in h3. So that's how we can apply the styles. Even we can give a class as well here. So for suppose I'm giving the final class here and I'm giving the final class for this div element. See, I am not giving the um, tag name in the selector, I am just giving the only class. So any simple selector can come here with the comma separated. So we are actually using the simple selector which are separated with which are separated with comma. So here h1, h2, h3 are simple selectors. If you see p and also simple selector and dot final is also simple selector, simple class selector. So I am using the class for a div. So I'm not specifying the div here, only I'm specifying the class for the cell. So this is a div. So I'm just refreshing this. So this div, sorry, why, yeah, not, yeah. So this is div. So for the div as well, the styles get applied because we are using that class as a selector here. So we can group id of an element as well here. So it can be anything, it can be any element, it can be any class, it can be any id, which are separated with the commas. So the styles will apply to those elements. So yeah, that's how we can do the group selector. Next thing is that child selector. So I will remove the group selector elements here. So h1 h2 h3 I'll remove. So yeah, here the style also as well I will remove. So now I want to apply styles to a paragraph which is there as a child to div. So here I have two paragraphs actually. One is that simple paragraph and a child paragraph. So I want to apply only for the child. That means a paragraph which is there as a child to div. So child means immediately after div. So div tag is there, immediate child is paragraph. So for suppose if you take a span here, this span is not a immediate child to do. Only we can call paragraph is immediate child. Okay. So the styles will get applied to this paragraph. If you see here, the styles will get applied to only that paragraph. So there is other paragraph, simple paragraph, for that it didn't have properly applied because the reason is that this is a child selector. So the paragraph should be immediately after div. So it can be after any other tag, but should be immediate child. For suppose here I'm using span here. So for this span, it won't get applied because we are not giving this span in that selector.